G'day punters, welcome to the Foxcatcher Review Show. My name's Julian Valence, joined up in Sydney by Nick Ashman, and obviously we had day 2 of the Champs, Nico. It was a big day, and I thought, to be honest, the market nailed those Group 1s, and it was good to see the really good horses do what they needed to do and get the W. How are you, my friend?
Yeah, I'm good. It was an eventful start to the championships with Autumn Glow coming out at about 7:30 on race morning, and myself, like quite a few other people judging by social media, had her going for a fairly good result in that race at the back end of Futures Multis, but that's the risk you take. And unfortunately, she had a small temperature. So that was the real scene setter for the day. And everyone was talking about which one of these shorties would go down. Everyone thought she was the best of good things. And certainly if you played in the final field markets, you weren't going to get burnt. But there was a lot of people that got burnt in futures markets. Now, the big question is, does she run this Saturday in the 3-year-old fillies race, or does she have a crack at the all-age stakes? So we'll obviously dissect that on Thursday's show. But the day didn't let us down. Treasure of the Moment was great. She had to reel off a pretty good last 200 metres. I thought they handed her the race, though, with a slow tempo. We'll talk about that. Via Sistina, she stood up when she had to be stood up in that fast-run race. That suited her. The Sydney Cup was a bit of a ball-over. Didn't have Arapaho running out a really strong 3,200 metres as he was forced to on Saturday. And Fangirl, well, yet again, we saw what a slow tempo does for her chances, and she's just a dominant filly and mare.
Absolutely, mate. Let's get to the track intel. Just quickly, with Autumn Glow, do you have any thought process on what they might do? And was that, if it was just an elevated temperature, would you think they'd go again with her, or they want to protect her a little bit and just say, hey, let's pull up stumps?
The language that Chris Waller Racing was using was very much that it was very minor and a slight elevation, which I think agitated punters even more.
Yeah, exactly. Just run her. Just run her. You would have won. Just run her.
I had the flu last week and still showed up and did this show. A couple of Panadol. I mean, you can't have Panadols as a racehorse, but you know what I mean. Come on, get on with the job. Cup of cement, love. But no, look, they'll obviously take all precautions with her. She's an unbeaten filly and very well bred. So I wouldn't be surprised if they have a crack at the all-age stakes, providing that she gallops well, presumably tomorrow being Tuesday, because the favourite at the moment is Briasa.
Yep.
And I'm not like Briasa's a good horse, but he's only just hit those weight for age ranks. Yeah. And I think if you went and knocked on the doors of 100 profitable punters around the country and said who's better out of Briasa or Autumn Glow, there'd be plenty that would be in the corner of the filly AG.
So going to be interesting to see what happens next week, and then those nominations and acceptances where usually is a bit of a lucky dip with C. Waller as well. So that will be fun and games. Track intel, mate, because obviously we're at Randwick again this week coming. So it's important to identify if there was any pattern and what we might see for next week. But last week, what do you think? Out 3 metres the entire.
It played pretty much how we thought it would. Yep. It was maybe just a fraction more off rail, particularly later in the day than we anticipated. We sort of said lanes 3 to 7 would provide the bulkier winners. 9 of the 10 winners were in lanes 3 to 10. So they just came a little bit wider. There was a couple of winners out there in lane 10. But you just sort of the thing that I noticed is that there was a lot of horses within 3 lengths of the lead at the 600 metre mark. A lot of winners, that is. Sorry, I think 7 of the 10 winners were within 3 lengths of the lead at the 600. So it was a day where you probably wanted to be forward of midfield, just making your run in those middle lanes in the home straight.
Beautiful. That's the track intel for day 2 of the Champs at Randwick. Let's get to the hen house, Nico. We've got a race that you've identified, and I like this because it's a 2-year-old race. We've really struggled to find 2-year-old races throughout this season that's gone well. This filly, she was probably unlucky a little bit in the slipper. I think you could make an argument that, you know, if she'd got the right run when she wanted it, she probably just about wins it. I speak of Tempted.
Yeah, she was good, wasn't she, Jules? I mean, she's run bang on sort of standard time, but she gave the marker, if you picture the swimming marker, you know, when you see the swimmers in the Olympic pool and the markers ahead of them, they're trying to catch it up. She gave that marker 7 lengths at the 600 metre mark, and she's run it down and she's beaten it just by a whisker. And the thing was, she's run the 5th fastest last 1,000 metres of the day. For her to do this, you know, it's essentially her first preparation. She had that 6-week let up over the Christmas period. She's been to Melbourne for a Blue Diamond where she had no luck. She went round in a fast run Golden Slipper and she still turned up and done this. She's a really good filly. She won't be considered the best of her generation, should be considered one of the best. But she's just bomb-proof. She hasn't run a bad race in her career.
She's the one that I can sort of go, she might really go on with it. You know, she has the break and she continues her progression. I really like the last 400, 200 here. I just thought there's definitely some guts to this horse. So I'm with you there. I think it's a race we can definitely follow. Let's kick off with the Group 1 races and let's dissect these ones, Nico. We're going to start with the Australian Oaks. It was race 6. Treasure the Moment wins the race. Look, it's close to a second outside standard time. The last 400, 200, 11.58, sort of that last 200, pretty good compared to the rest of the day. She's a very, very good filly.
She's very good, but geez, they've kind of handed her the race. Now, that sounds a bit cheap of a comment to make, given that she had to dig deep. She had to run a pretty good last 200 metres. It ranked 18th for the day, which mightn't sound that great, but in a 2,400-metre 3-year-old filly contest, when you've got some pretty sharp horses running around, that is a good performance. But they went through the first 1,800 metres of this race. The leader went through nearly 20 lengths slower than standard, Jules. And for a horse like her who's got you and I have both spoken about this. Yeah. She's going to be a mile, 2,000-metre horse in the spring. The way you're going to get her beaten on Saturday is making her work from the outset, not making a dash from the 600-metre mark. So Sun and Sand, the fact that the leader from the Jones, the Barbara Joseph and Paul Jones yard was able to hold on for second at 50-1. It was a bit like when Braylock led the 2004 Derby field and Starcraft got him. Starcraft was never a 2,400-metre horse, but he got there because they just walked in front and Braylock was able to hold on for second. This had shades of that. There was just the wrong race shape if they wanted to try and beat this odds-on pop. Like a Lucy was okay. Belle de Tell, she pulled her head off because they went so slow. Yeah. Even though she was coming out of a slowly run 2,000-metre race, she needed something faster on Saturday. She just didn't get it. So well done. Not taking anything away from Treasure of the Moment, but geez, I reckon the other fillies have missed a chance here at maybe having a crack at pulling her pants down. Yeah, and the key is they're not going to get another opportunity in that sort of situation. So, look, a couple of them might go up to Brisbane and try and win a Queensland Oaks up there or the South Australian Oaks, something like that. But M&M, these opportunities don't come too often. You got to capture it when you get your chance. Race 7 was the Sydney Cup. Arapahoe wins it. They went well inside standard time here, Nico. The last 400, 200, very soft compared to the rest of the day. But you can understand that because they just went so quick. What do you make of this race overall? Is it, I know maybe 25 years ago you could make the guide. If you won a Sydney Cup, you might be a live chance in a Melbourne Cup. Is there anything out of this race that you could push to suggest that could ever be the case again? Probably not. Yeah. They ran really fast time because Athabaskan, Alalkins went through the first 2,000 or 2.5 kilometres about 16, 17 lengths above standard. So this race quite often is very fast run. A couple of my mates who are on the favourite said, what happened to her? She just stopped. I'm like, I don't know many horses that would have kept on going on that pace. So she would have won that. She would have been the exception to maybe the Sydney Cup, not great form for Melbourne Cup if she was to be able to continue to hold that speed and win the race. But correct. I think River of Stars is an interesting one. I want to keep an eye on this horse. River of Stars was second in the run. Settled handy, was way above benchmark through that first whatever distance it was, 2.5 kilometres, and has held on and placed here running third behind Arapahoe and Walton. Walton was a horse that you and I spoke about who came through the chairmans. He always had that profile that he could have a decent peak, and I think he's probably a horse that needs a good, genuine tempo. When he won at the Gold Coast a couple of starts ago in I think a benchmark 80 or benchmark 88 race, the pace there was really fast and he just rounded them up. And we've seen that pattern now. And the chairmans, it wasn't fast enough for him. He got his fast pace on Saturday. He's a fast-paced stayer. He's one of those horses that would probably do okay over in Japan in the right class if you get what I'm trying to say. So I thought Cleveland, I had something on him at $34, certainly not a Melbourne Cup horse, but Jamie had no option but to come via Rosehill around the home turn. And unfortunately for him, if he probably goes through the inside and picks off run, I'm not blaming her. He might have actually run a place at a bit of a price, but he just went too wide, particularly for the pattern on the day. So to answer your question, no, I don't think any of these will be winning a Melbourne Cup, and I say that with all due respect. That said, if a Arapahoe turned up and produced them in Arapaho's carried 56 kilos here, Jules. So it wasn't a real lightweight. It wasn't like Circle of Fire last year.
Yep.
And his time rating was pretty good. If he ran this kind of a figure in the Melbourne Cup, he'd probably run top 5.
Yep.
But just whether or not something down on the weights knocks him off is the big story.
Yep. The interesting, you did touch on the horse Waltham, and I think you spoke about, he's probably a fast runner. He's just, I think when he gets into these slowly run races, he gets his mind to think about it, and he just needs a lot more racing, this horse, because he does do a lot wrong, and you probably don't get an opportunity to do a lot wrong when you're actually like just having to try and keep up for most of the races. So I wouldn't be surprised to see this horse go to Brisbane and they run in 2 more races there and end up in a Brisbane Cup. So I don't know. There probably is no markets out for a Brisbane Cup, but he might be the one that I think with continual racing will continue to improve and progress as a stayer. And he's the one that I'm just going to keep an eye on going forward, because I think the more they race this horse, the more they'll knock out the garbage that he can provide. And then I think he'll continue to be a horse that continues to progress. So he might be one for the punters out there to have a look at for Brisbane. Let's get to the Queen Elizabeth Stakes. She was outstanding. It was Via Sistina. Well inside standard time here. Their last 400, 200. Well, we know she can go a lot quicker than this, but they broke 12 seconds too, because this is quite a hot time. But she just lived up to what we thought, what you thought would happen on Thursday. Yeah,
look, no prizes for finding her, but I just thought that black figures, and even looking back, I'm not going to lie, I had a decent crack at her. And I was even thinking afterwards, I should have had more.
There's always like more or not more. Yeah. And it's usually when they win, you want more on.
Correct. And when they get better at the top of the straight, if you had asked me, do you want more on now? I would have said, I'm better off. Oh, man, I want to get out. She was great. And look, credit to James McDonald as well. When you go through and watch the replay, which I've done a few times, because there's a lot of talk about this, like he lost his position at the point of the bend, but he drew barrier 1. He had to ride underneath horses. There was good pace in the race. The gaps should have appeared, and they started to, but then they also closed up with some good jockeying from his rival Hoops. But this is why you pay the JMac tax, because there's a lot of Hoops, and I say this with all due respect to a lot of the other blokes and women in that shed, jockey's room, they would have panicked. He didn't, and he knew the horse he had underneath him. It was a bit like H. Bowman on Winks. He knew what he had underneath him. He knew that she would pick herself back up, and he went back to the inside and found runs, and they came as well for him, thank God. So she was awesome. First 1,400 metres, about 7 lengths above standard. So that race pace was finally there, and that's why she was able to prevail. The reality is if she got a clear crack at them from the 600, she probably wins by 5 lengths, 4 lengths.
Yeah.
Maybe 5 is a bit too much, but I think she probably wins by another couple of lengths. That little kerfuffle from the 600 to the 300 definitely cost her at least a length or two. Dubai Honor, he's a great, he's a great example of how the Europeans can come out here and really compete at anything from 2,000 to 2,400. Tommy Kitten's had the preparation of his life, Jules. He's raced well, all preparation. James Cummings has finally ironed out. You talk about Waltham having a couple of things doing in the penthouse. That was Tommy Kitten 12 months ago. Credit to Godolphin and James Cummings, because they've clearly ironed that out. That's now 5 good runs in a row for him. Lindeman's had a good prep as well. Cheerwolf, just wonder where he's at.
Yeah.
That was the right race shape for him to finish off. Maybe he just likes fast run miles. He needs a bit softer at 2,000, maybe. I don't know. I'd be interested to hear Joe's thoughts, and we'll talk about a couple other horses when we go through some horses to follow a bit later.
Beautiful. Well done. So that was the Queen Elizabeth Stakes. And let's get to the last of the 4 Group 1s that were on day 2 of the Champs, and it was won by Fangirl. The last 400, 200 is outstanding, which we always know with Fangirl is that's her biggest asset, is just that monster finish. And I like the fact that she was hammered in betting, and we'll get to hits and misses soon because she's actually part of it. And maybe that had something to do with the possibility of she was the last of the sort of 4 big Group 1 races, and Treasure of the Moment had won, and Via Sistina won, and then we would just start. I think the punters were starting to roll. She was outstanding. She does what she can occasionally do. She's done a nice, good, strong figure.
Yeah, she has. But again, this is a race that played into the hands. The first 2 across the line wanted a soft tempo.
Yep.
Steffi Magnetica got it last week in the Doncaster Mile. And we said the reason why she was able to sprint past him at the mile was because she got the soft tempo. She's probably the best at 1,400 metres. Again, she gets the soft tempo. But here she faced a horse with a better turn of foot than her, and that's Fangirl, who's just got a slightly sharper turn of foot. And Fangirl was able to establish that margin. Steffi got out late. She was a bit unlucky, and she ran home really well. She got held up there for Jace Collett in the saddle. And Fangirl just came around him and belted down the centre with J-Mac. He's got a great record on Fangirl. Him on Fangirl is just a great recipe for success. The third placed horse probably wanted a faster tempo, a Tissue. It's probably, don't know if it's the one you want to follow out of the race because she's had a couple of gut busters this preparation, but she's the one that didn't get the race shape to suit her. She wanted this race run much, much faster. Grinzinger Bell, interesting that Declan went out 3 lengths slower than 3 lengths below benchmark through the first 1,000 metres. I thought this was the opportunity for him to go 3 or 4 above, stretch him out, create that margin, and maybe cause the ball over. So I was surprised with the tactics there.
Just with the Tissue, do you think they would continue? Because you're right. I mean, she had some sort of, I think she might have even been on a quick backup down here in Melbourne one occasion as well. It's been a bit of a prep. Would they go to Brisbane or do you reckon they'd pull up stumps with a Tissue? Because I don't know where, I just sort of don't know where, I don't know where she fits.
Yeah, she's only had 4 runs this prep, Jules, and 3 of those 4 runs have been in slowly run races. She didn't back up, mate. She actually had 2 weeks between runs in Melbourne.
Yeah, okay, good.
And the only gutbuster she had was the Australian Cup.
Yep.
Now she's had a very soft mile. So I think she can go up and run in a Hollindale and the Doomben Cup if that's what they want to do.
Yep.
Maybe they go, you know what, let's keep it real fresh and go into a Tats Tiara. Maybe this is the last season we'll see a Tissue. So no doubt Chris will make the right call. He always does. But I think she could go to either of those 2 races. I think even in a fast run 1,400-metre race, a little bit on the fresh side, she could be competitive there too. So no matter where she goes, she'll be competitive.
That's the rundown of the Group 1 races from day 2 of the championships. Let's get to the hits and misses from the PointsBet trading floor here, Nick. I just want to get your thoughts. Do we follow them? What actually happened here? Was it their birthday? Race 1, I know you liked this horse, so you might have set the trend here for this horse to be back. $3.90 into $3.10. Michelangelo, do we want to be with it again?
Yeah, stick with him. The pace here was just an absolute dawdle. They went through the first 1,000 metres 15 lengths below standard. So he's a big, lumbering type of horse. He needs pace on. I thought coming out of the, what was the race, the Baillieu, I thought maybe they'd go a bit quicker here, vying for a spot in the Champagne. Spicy Lou led. Leader wins. First 3 round the bend, first 3 across the line, only second and third switched around. I don't think he had a hope in hell of winning from where he was. I don't know what they do with him. Does Chris take him north for the JJ Atkins?
Yep.
Or does he give him a spell? He's a bit raw still. He's still a bit of a Dumbo looking at him race. So maybe they might see him more as a 3-year-old prospect. But he's got a good race in him, this horse. Stick with him.
Okay, so that's a good push there for Michelangelo. Market wanted to be with it, so that's always some type of a good sign. Race 2, no strings attached. One from Victoria, $5 into $3.70. Miss runs second. We're just mindful that this was probably not one of the highest rated races out of the day, so we just might have to be careful there.
Yeah, look, the slowly run race as well for him. I'm sort of clutching at straws to make an excuse for him, but he had to give Sergeant Major has form. They tested him up to, I think, either a mile or 2,000 metres last preparation. This time in, they went 1,200 metres, 1,400 metres third up. He was loving that slow tempo on speed because he just started to build and build and build. And I think it's just a case of no strings attached, just had to concede a little bit of a start to a horse that was never going to stop with that tempo. And he just kept on lifting. If you look at Sergeant Major's figures right through the line, he was still lifting. It was a very sharp last 200 metres from no strings attached and also interjection out of that race as well. But unfortunately, Sergeant Major wasn't stopping, so they couldn't pick him up.
Race 3, Lord of Biscay, $5 into $2.65. Misses, runs second. Is there some hope there that the market wanted to be with it?
Yeah, look, he again, similar sort of story. He gave a length and a half start at the 600-metre mark to Machelate, who's got form over longer distances than 1,400 metres and, again, wasn't going to stop. It was basically the same as what happened in the previous race. Similar story. No excuses, just race shape. Race
5, this will look big, but obviously this is including the deduction of Autumn Glow, so we have to be careful here. But big swinger, $34 into $3.20. No doubt the 34 probably was a bit too big. It runs unplaced, but this is a horse from Victoria, Nico, and I've got a big opinion of this horse. I was surprised they went so high in straight to this Group 2 Arrowfield, which is always such a strong race. I just thought, geez, you'd be able to just play the edges here and you can win 3 or 4 in a row down here. They decided to go up there. I think it's one that has got plenty of ability, this horse.
Yeah, he's in my black bookers of horses to follow, in which we'll talk about a bit later on. Yep. He's run the best last 400, 200 metres of the day. This was a joke of a race, Jules.
Yeah.
First 600 metres, 16 lengths below standard.
Mm.
I mean, maybe in a staying race you get 16 lengths below standard. They've just walked. Nash came out on Gatsby's and went back to the tail of the field. That horse had no hope from where he was.
Yep.
They've absolutely dawdled in front. Enriched has got a nice little sharp turn of foot on him, and he was able to dash. He was sitting second. Leaders kicked and held on for second. Public Attentions was fourth in run and runs third. Big swinger, as I said, best last 400, 200 metres of the day, and couldn't pick him up. So I'd be sticking with him for sure. He's got good races in him.
Yeah, good. And then we get to race 6 and Treasure of the Moment in the Australian Oaks. $1.65 to $1.50. Look, it doesn't look that big of a push, but when you're playing in big G1 days and you're still getting pushed into the market, percentage is coming all the way down to be $1.65 into $1.50. The market's got her as an outstanding Super Group 1 filly, and she didn't let them down. So we've spoken enough about her, mate. And in race 9, Fangirl, which we spoke about previously as well, $1.95 into $1.60. And that could have been also just because she was the last one after Via had won Treasure of the Moment. There might have been built into that end up push for Fangirl as well. That was the hits and misses from the PointsBet trading floor. Let's get to In the Fox's Den. So a couple of black bookers. You've teased a few for us, but I think we've got 2 individuals that you want us to follow out of this meeting, and obviously kicking off, Big Swinger is one.
Yeah, Big Swinger. I just think he was, like what you said, he was outgraded, but the good news is he didn't, not so much outgraded, but he was a big step up from where he was racing. Yep. For mine, he's got the turn of foot of a Group 2 3-year-old. There's no doubt about that. Best last 400, 200 metres of the day at Randwick on Saturday. I'd just love to see them now. I don't know, you're much better at the handicaps than me, having worked in that vicinity for RV. Given where he finished, I think he finished 5th. I mean, does he get much of a damage to his domestic?
Yeah, they're not going to hack into him because
they won't touch him.
Yeah, no, they might just say I don't know what number he was, but they might get him to
6 or.
Yeah, so he's going to be able to, if they wanted to, come back. To be honest, he could run in a midweek race and be not penalised too much at all. So there's plenty of options for him. It's just what they want to do.
Well, I hope they do, because I think he's proven himself at the Group 2 level. I suppose it depends on who the dam is and who she's related to and who owns it and whatnot, because there's always people wanting to get some value for their breeding purposes as well. But I would think that if he goes back and runs in the midweeks and works through the grade over those winter months, and then he can probably come into the early spring and have a crack at some of those early spring races with the residual fitness, have 2 or 3 runs in the prep and put him out and get ready for a big autumn next year. That's how I'd play it with him, but we'll see what Charlotte and the team does.
Yep, so that's one from you think we might be looking at on the side, but this one, I think the next one you're about to talk to might be one that's heading to Brisbane.
Yeah, Buckaroo. I thought he did well. The Queen Elizabeth, he was only coming out of one very soft run George Ryder over 1,500 metres. It was won by Gringotts, and Gringotts led. Buckaroo had no luck in that race. I don't think he had the right foundation for a fast run 2,000-metre race. It's a bit like what happened in the Randwick Guineas this year when Broadsiding, Aliana and Swift Falcon all got beaten. They were second up, and the one who beat them was Linebacker, who had the extra run under the belt. Similar story here for him. He was the solo second upper off a slowly run race in the Queen Elizabeth on Saturday, and the pace was just too hot for him to figure. That'll bring him on a bit now. What you're looking for now is a nice tune-up run in the Hollandale Stakes in a couple of weeks' time, and then bang into the Doomben Cup. I think that's his race. I'm really confident he can measure up in the Doomben Cup, and I think that's probably what they've eyed off for him. They can sort of see he's not at Via Sistina level, so maybe his go is to have a bat during the winter and maybe pick off a couple of early spring races rather than trying to tackle the Cox Plate.
Yeah, that's very good, and I think it's you've identified the right horse for Brisbane, and as maybe what the connections have done, they'd say, hey, probably couldn't win the Queen Elizabeth off that kind of prep, but let's build a beautiful platform getting into Brisbane. And look, this horse started a Clear Cup favourite in a Caulfield Cup, and he was enormous behind running second to Via Sistina, where it wasn't much between those two in the spring. Done and dusted, mate. Let's get through the line here really quickly. We'll just bang these out, and I'll start. I want your take on gun to the head. What's the Cox Plate trifecta right now?
Well, you've got to have Via Sistina, assuming she's going to bat on.
So we don't know, though, do we? We don't know.
No, we don't know. We have no idea. If I knew Aliana was going there, I'd put her in, but I think she'll probably go to the Caulfield Cup. So it'd be, at this point in time, I'd say Via Sistina, assuming she runs. Yep. Treasure of the moment. I think that's her race. She's got to have a crack at it. They might decide not to go there and just stick to the Empire Rose.
Yeah.
But I'd love to see her have a crack at the Cox Plate.
Yep.
And then you've got to ask yourself where you go after that. And for your third horse, as I said, if I knew Aliana was going there, I'd put her in. Otherwise, mate, I've got no idea.
Big
Tommy
gap.
Kitten might be able to measure up. Big gap, I would have thought. Yeah.
I actually was going to ask you when you spoke about Tommy Kitten. He's had a great preparation. He's also now probably built a little bit of a profile that, hey, he can match it with some of these really good horses at the top level. So I'll be fascinated to see what they decide to target with him in the spring, because I think they're all gettable targets for him. I don't think, if you'd had this conversation with me 4 months ago, I was like, he's a gunner. It's not going to happen for him. I'm always worried about him in these kinds of races. Now he's become a performer that you can trust.
Yeah. That's what I mean. This preparation's been the real turning point for him. So I tend to think that might be his go. Now, I want to come back to you and ask you, and I'm going to use the term standalone, but I want to ask you about your thoughts. A lot of people talking about, I'm a fan of them. I know they're not that good for turnover, but I don't believe everything has to be based on turnover. Thoughts on Bendigo and Mornington hosting these Saturday sort of metro meetings?
It's a really interesting point, because at the end of the day, racing theoretically is funded by turnover. So you're right. Not everything should be about turnover, but at the end of the day, it sort of has to be. Now, the other part to that is it is, I think, really important for your product to be able to take it to on the road. And there needs to be these regional places like Bendigo, Mornington, Ballarat has one later in the spring, to be able to do what they do. You've just got to make sure the infrastructure around it supports that. And by infrastructure, I'm really adamant about track presentation and having a track that punters have confidence to bet into and will bet into. So, look, I think there's no doubt Bendigo was probably on speed on Saturday, but so's Caulfield on a really dry deck. So's Moonee Valley when the rail goes out. So that, I'm not pinning it to that. I just am really mindful, as long as they put the time and resources into the track and the infrastructure there, then I'm happy for it to happen. But just don't expect it to be great for racing as a whole if you don't put it in there and you don't get, the results ran because the track wasn't good. Mornington always worries me. I just find that's always a hard track. But, I mean, you've got Hawkesbury, you've got Scone up there. I mean, clearly, yes, there's always an asterisk on the turnover with these places. But I suppose your product has to be bigger than that, even though I am still adamant. This is very different to a sport like AFL. This is different to a sport like NRL. While you're trying to build your product, you still need turnover coming through, because this is how we're funded.
Yeah, 100%. To be fair to Bendigo, mate, there was, looking at the figures, there was only really one race run with a fast tempo on Saturday. The rest was sort of even or genuine. There was, for a track that was playing quite on speedish, there wasn't a lot of pace in those 10 races.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, I mean, it was upgraded to a good 3 after race 6. So, hard, fast tracks, we talk about it a lot. If you're on speed, it's just so hard, and they're good horses, it's hard to be able to come from the back anyway. So, as much as people might say, leaders track, I wasn't built into that. That's just the way it panned out. Hawkesbury and Scone, they're sort of the places that happen up there.
Yep.
Do you think, I suppose there's 2 points to it. I mean, down here, we definitely get usually big fields, so the trainers are definitely supportive. The owners are supportive. If you put the prize money on, they'll definitely come. Is that the same sentiment up there in New South Wales?
Yeah, look, they're good carnivals. Scone's a great carnival to go to, the 2-day carnival up there. It's a lot of fun. I think you've got to get that balance between turnover. Obviously, it's the lifeblood of the industry. I get that. And that's got to always come first. But I think the trick for the administrators is to navigate it so we give plenty of love to our regional areas. The thing about horse racing, the reason why it's so dominant in Australia is because there's more tracks per capita in this country than any country in the world. So when you're growing up in regional areas in Australia, your family normally take you to a racetrack because they have their once-a-year cup and you go out there. It's ingrained, that little bit of horse racing goes into the brain. When I was growing up, they don't do it so much these days, but when I was growing up, everyone watched the Melbourne Cup on the TV at school before we went home. That's what they order the buses later. It's a little bit different these days. That people are a little bit more protective about gambling and so forth. But the point I want to make is you've got to make sure you keep in touch with your grassroots out in the regional areas. And I think the way to do that is to give them a bit of love for Saturday. So I'm in support of it.
Last one, mate, very quickly.
Yep.
Anything back up out of the Fernhill and win the Champagne or be competitive in the Champagne?
The only one would be Michelangelo. I'm still sticking with him if he gets a fast tempo. We'll have to have a look at the race setup for that on Thursday when we do the preview show. Otherwise, I think it's nepotisms to lose.
Beautiful. We will do that preview show on Thursday. There'll be the two Group 1s, the All-Aged and the Champagne. I will see you then. Thanks for your time.
See you, my man.
Bye-bye. Sayonara. Righto, punters, Ashman done and dusted. That was the Randwick. Now we get to the Victorian review. And joining me in the studio is Clint Hutchi Hutchison. How are you?
I'm very well. Now listen, I'm very well. Very well.
Yeah,
you've had a big weekend, obviously. You've been over in South Australia. We haven't spoken about what's transpired. How was the weekend?
Yeah, it was a bit happening. They do a very good job, Adelaide, all very close together too. I know there's games at the Barossa and somewhere else, but it was all very good. Had to do Furnace last night and actually mentioned it on Furnace last night that it's Easter next week, but Friday I died. But by Sunday I'd rose again. 3 days again.
It's like you've got your Jesus now, is that? You've come back.
It was fun. Will I go again? I'm not too sure.
No, I reckon you would. You
might have to get involved next year.
You'd have FOMO if you did.
That's probably true. Yeah. I was having FOMO during it. They were like, "Oh, we should stay out." And the arm gets twisted, as you know. So,
anyway, you're here. Well, and you know what? You seem like you're in a really good mood.
I'm in a great space.
Yeah, that's good.
And then once we've finished this Bendigo meeting, I think that space might not be so well. Let's get to the track intel of how this track played, Hutch. So true position the entire circuit. It was a good 4. It was upgraded to a good 3 after race 6. They were running really fast times because the track was quite dry. And what happens when I got it wrong Thursday. I thought around the circle leaders fall off the cliff a little bit. Wasn't to be the case at all. It was plus leaders, advantage to be on speed. But then that's sort of the MO when the track is continually very, very dry.
Yeah.
It's hard to make ground.
They protect that ground at Bendigo, but done a couple of these meetings and it can be a bit up and in. This particular meeting, or was it 7 of 10 within a length and a half at the 600? So it really was. There were a lot of horses that couldn't win. I mean, and their pattern was identifiable early in the day.
Good point. And to those that played early, like me, in some of those races, on some of those horses, EAD. The hen house races that we liked here, Hutch, that we think we can follow with a bit of confidence, whether it's going to be the winner or whether it might be horses that finished in behind them. We're going to kick off with race 4. He's just been a hard horse to catch. I know I've backed this horse a few times. I think once up the straight ran really well, missed out. I think they tried to go sort of guineas early with it, but it couldn't really stay. It sort of just did all these things wrong. Talk of She-Light, they took it to the front, 1.5 seconds inside standard time, so really good time. Look, the last 400, 200, 12.26, last 200, probably a little bit soft compared to the rest of the day, but did all the damage sort of early doors, and it was a good win. So maybe can you be confident with this horse?
No, and I'll tell you what. I mean, overall, it's rated really well. But you know, I couldn't believe they could lead at a reasonable tempo, and he's somehow managed to do this all of a sudden. So
he usually misses it. He usually is half out, like slow out. So he always gets this. He's always usually worse than midfield, and then sort of steams on and is that like back me, suck in type run. And now they've been able to get him to jump clean from the barriers. They were aggressive and he wins the race. So, look, for me, he's still going to be a little bit Goldilocks-y that I don't know if I can follow him now. And yes, as you say, the rating's there now. So it'll be interesting to see if the market goes, okay, we can trust him, but just don't know if I'm there yet with him.
Well, exactly. And the other thing is, Patton on the side. So he's run good time. This meeting in general can be a little bit, I think it's sort of horses on the day have had a few favours in terms of pattern or just the way it's worked out.
Yeah.
But he has always shown good ability.
Yes.
I'd be more considerate of him next time he goes around.
Yeah, let's just see what they put him up and see what we do with She-Light. Next up, another race that I think went really well. is race 5. Manalo Bling is the winner. We're going to get to the price of Manalo Bling a little bit later and hits and misses because it was absolutely off the map first up. So it was a good positive sign there from a market perspective for a horse that was resuming. 1 second inside standard time, last 400, 200 good, 11.74 that last 200. I think this is a race that I can follow with confidence. I like the fact that they did back this horse. It's had a big number up the Flemington Straight one time, I think. There's a few behind it we might want to be with as well. So I'm putting this one in the hen house.
Yeah, I think he needs to find the right race. He was well placed here. He had another leader and he's gone well. He is capable. He handles it straight. He needs to be well placed again for me to be convinced. I was on Sweethearted. But,
so was I. Yeah. And I think we'll put that it's going to go into setting fire to it.
Okay, we'll talk
about that a little bit later. But disappointing from market expectations, Sweethearted. Yep. But I think from where it was, it did as good as it could do.
Yep.
And I'd probably want to stick the next start.
I think so.
I would have.
I think so.
This next race is a nice horse. Race 7 is the race we're talking about. Zalotti's is the winner. Again, second inside standard time. They break 12 last 400, last 200. So she was only third up. She's progressive. She probably wasn't very well in terms of handicap for this sort of set weight and penalty type race, but off the map again from a market perspective. We know the camp. They're just so astute. She's a nice horse.
She is the one runner at the whole meeting that I think you could be confident following. Yeah. I had a good bet one day when she first stepped out on Happy Link, who actually went on to beat Treasure of the Moment at its next up, believe it or not. But she defied the bias that day. She pretty much did it again, or a pattern on the day at Bendigo. She just keeps winning, and the good ones do. They'll defy those little factors that may not be in their favour. She's a line finder. She quickens well, good winning strike rate, right stable. I think they can aim very high with her.
Yep.
And
go on. Do you think like a mare's G1 race you could have a crack at?
I think so.
In the spring.
I mean, it was quite interesting that they never, they persevered well. I think she had a debut as almost a 5-year-old, or certainly she was an older mare anyway. Maybe she might not have been that old. I'll have to go back. I should have checked that, shouldn't I? But anyway, they took their time with her, and they were happy to sort of go, no, she's worth persevering with. So
paying dividends now, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, she's really good. And I also love the big push to her from a market perspective. So the bigger people that move the market as well are really thinking, there's more progression here. Like, I don't think we've got to the bottom of it. Yeah. The ceiling could be anywhere.
She was good.
Yeah,
it was
really good.
I thought it was the win of the day, even though the margin
I agree with that. Yeah. And to be honest, by this stage, I was like, she can't. As much as the market was pushing to her and I was on her, I was like, we're in trouble here. Yeah. She's just going to get, not her fault, but she'll just be probably midfield or worse. He pulls to the middle and she's just not going to get there. Like, she's going to be a good run, but she's not going to win. But as she said, she was sort of the first one to defy it, and then maybe a couple others did it later in the day. So Lotties, she goes in everywhere when you see her next. I wonder if they take her up to Brisbane.
I think they'll have to look at that sort of thing. It's a good carnival for that too, isn't it?
Yeah. They get the sun on the back and then they come back and blah, blah, blah. That was the hen house. All right, let's get to the dog house here, Hutch. So just races we're a little bit worried about in terms of maybe the horses have had their birthday here, but what we do really want to push the punters into is we think the market will probably be against these horses the next time they run because there's just no real figure. First one was Through Irish Eyes. It's a staying race in Victoria, my friend. So they usually go in here.
Yeah, Q, where's the sleeping tablet? I mean, seriously, another one?
Went to the front.
Well, I don't know. What do we learn out of this race?
Yeah. And this is a horse we really know well. Like, I think it ran in some okay races as a 3-year-old, back-end 3-year-old, and then
I'll tell you what I did think would win in the race, Steel Run. Leave me out of that again.
So it was really – so I was on, and it was the sort of the first one beaten, and the fact that I know there was a big margin to second, but how it ran second I'm just not really sure. But it didn't have a run of a horse that you want it to be with because it's got a number in it, Steel Run
somewhere.
They'll
line up again in a couple of weeks and we'll
take their turn.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll talk about it again in the doghouse in 2 weeks' time, whatever.
It'll be great. Don't need an Ambien when you get a race like that.
Correct. And here's the next race we're going to look at, and surprise, surprise, staying races in Victoria, 2-year-old races around Australia. Kiliano wins this one, equal to standard time, 24:12:20. So, look, nothing really there on the clock, but this is just sort of what it's been like for the last since we've seen these first 2-year-olds run around, isn't it? There's not much guts to them.
As good as the 3-year-old fillies are, this 2-year-old crop are ordinary. And I'm with you. I mean, this race, I was against her, so I got her completely wrong and egg all over the face. I didn't get her completely wrong. She was just short enough for mine, and she was pretty good. I mean, she won nicely. The runner-up was solid enough. I think she had a birthday. Again, I don't know if I'd follow her too much going forward. I mean, the time just wasn't good enough.
Yeah, we just don't know. We don't know what's going to happen with these horses. So that was the Doghouse this week. All right, Hutch, let's get to the hits and misses from the PointsBet trading floor, because I just think there's a few horses here I'd be really interested in your opinion because they were well back. Do we follow them again because maybe the pattern was against them? Because as you said, you needed to be sort of 1.5 lengths sort of from that 400 or 500.
I've got to say before you start, I'm sort of in the Jules Valance negativity zone with regard to this meeting. So I was surprised.
You don't reckon you'll find any?
I don't know if there'll be too many.
I reckon you'll find one. Okay. You'll find one or two.
All right.
Well, I'll try and push you into them.
Okay.
Race 1, St Vincent's Garden at PointsBet was $7.50 into $4.80. Misses, runs unplaced, ran 4th. This horse was second up. Promised to do things, but hasn't actually ever done anything. We don't like the race overall, so we think the market's going to be against him. Can this horse be an outlier? And we like it?
No.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm
surprised it took me that long to think about that.
Yeah, it seems like the market thinks it's got some progression, but just haven't been able to see it in Australia. So I'm not
to be with any of them.
Race 2, the 2-year-old race, which we didn't like. Algerton Storm was $10 into $5.50. It runs unplaced. Miss. The fact that we don't like the race, I think I know which way you're going to be heading here. No. Race 4, this was interesting. Freight Train was really well backed. $4.20 into $2.85. Got mine. Unplaced. I thought it was really plain.
Yeah, it was ordinary. I never looked likely.
No.
Ran like a 30-1 chance. Not a what price was it?
$4.80 was $4.20 into $2.85.
Yeah,
I would think disappointed. It was a real disappointing one.
More than that.
It should have.
A couple of factors against it. Not that much. I wasn't with it, but I thought it was better than. Well, it is better than that.
Yeah. So see where it goes. It was only second up there, so we'll see what happens with it. But
no,
a little bit worried about it.
Put the train out in the same basket, please.
This one was the winner. Race 5, Manalo Bling. $6.50 into $2.85. This horse was resuming. So the market was saying, hey, we're ready to rock and roll. Maybe we're going to be positive as well. And they delivered in spades.
I thought it was only a couple of chances in the race.
Yeah.
And it had the map advantage on the day. Yep. So, the market's early probably missed that one.
Yep. We like her. You've mentioned this one. Race 7, Zalottis, $3.20 into $2.25. Big hit. Following her.
Ring-a-ding-ding. We got one. We've finally got one. Zalottis.
And as we talked about, the number's great. She does things. She defies the pattern. But I also think there's something in the fact that the market just wanted to smash her.
Continually it does. Yeah, she's a good horse.
Yeah, so that's a positive for sure. Race 8, horse called Wonder Boy, hits $3.50 into $3. I was on this horse as well. And at the 300 and at the 200 and at the 100, I thought you are not getting there. And then at the 20, I thought, well, you might get there and then the other thing might blouse you, but he got there. I think that might have been his race, though.
Yeah,
Hutch.
that's his
race. I think.
And the tempo suited, the pattern suited, had the right run. I thought it was a good ride.
It was a great ride, actually, because this horse has the ability to be worse than midfield and just be neutral from the gates. I loved when it sat outside leader like what it did. I thought this will be the winner.
Yeah.
But it did seem to make hard work of it.
Take a long time to get there. But he deserved it. And I wasn't sort of with him because of the map, but I can, it was a well-executed ride.
Yeah, same race. Ruda Real was $12 into $4.80, misses, but runs third. If those punters had taken that each way price, they'd probably be pretty happy. Race 10, this is an interesting horse. Pivot City, $3.60 hammered into $2.05. Misses, runs third. Probably gate 1, not an advantage, maybe. Maybe they had to try and ride it a little bit more warm than they wanted to. I thought the horse's 2 runs prior had been outstanding, and I thought this was its race. I don't know now where it goes.
Yeah, I thought his Valley run was early in the day at the Valley.
Yeah.
So I think it was the best time to make that sort of run on the track. Fair. But it was a huge run all the same.
Yeah.
And he's just one of those horses, I think, that needs a bit to go his way in races.
That's a good point. You don't want to be taking $2.05 about those horses.
No, he's not the one. And is he the kind of horse that if he draws one, could he be leaders back? And he's not really that kind of horse.
And that's exactly right. And when he got to the outside of horses, yes, he lengthened. But it took him a while to get there, and he seems to take a while to line to
good
to
run.
wind up.
He's going to win again, but you got to pick and choose. I think
Correct.
When you want to be on him.
That's a very good point. That's the hits and misses this week, punters. Setting fire to it here, Hutch. So let's get to what we want to look at, and it was let's get the replay of race 5 here at Bendigo. So the beginning of the race is just about the end of the race for me, because once they opened those gates, Manalo Bling was positive and went to the front. And as you can see there, Sweetheart are probably just a little bit slow away and ends up last. And as you can see through the run as we get through this replay, it's just out the back in a really awkward spot. The pattern wasn't going to suit it. And I thought it was really good, so I still want to be with it. But when you're on it at this time, like I was on Saturday, when that first 100 metres was the key factor of when you'd put a
you're
flame
at the mercy of how you step out of the stalls.
Yeah.
But I think in addition to that, you also, if your main danger is going to be right there and you do identify a pattern, I mean, I'm a fan of, you might have to take the horse out of his comfort zone to try and get there a little bit more. But, I get what you're saying, and I'm not necessarily saying in this instance they could have executed that, but probably around the grounds they don't do that enough.
Yeah. I think this one is more, if you've got the cash on, it's not so much jockey error or trainer error in this one. It's more just you knew your cash was torched after that first 100 metres just because of the circumstances, not because...
And it was a good run. And like you said, we can stick with Sweetheart, but in this instance, the market was right. Identified the leader. I think, like I said, there were a couple of chances. They really went heavily with the horse where they knew Manalo Bling was going to be.
Yeah.
And it was a very easy watch if you're on.
Absolutely was. So I think we stick with Sweetheart. As much as this setting fire to it on Saturday, it wasn't anything to do with connections. It was just that's the way the race unfolded. But there's many ways to set fire to money. Hutch, I've found most of them.
We've found a few, haven't we? Yeah, exactly.
And this was just another way that the first 100 metres you knew you would get in the water. All right, in the Fox's den here, so a couple of black bookers from you, Hutch. So the best part about this is these are all yours.
Yeah, I've got
a plethora of them.
Well, yeah.
So kick us a couple out of Bendigo that you identified.
Given the pattern of what we saw on the day, I thought Liberami. I was on Liberami as well, but I was the same sort of thing. I'm not in a good space here. I'm sort of second last, and I tell you what, it was a very good run under the circumstances. I thought Liberami was a terrific run, pace and pattern, and given where the principals finish, and I think they can choose a sort of the mile race somewhere, and Liberami is definitely one to follow. So there's the first one.
Yes.
The next one, I know that has a great sort of fan club, Aaron Bay, and I just felt, I know the pattern was kind of on side on the back of the leader, but that was second up.
Yep.
Tough, consistent horse, Aaron Bay, and I think, there's some options with him in terms of where they go. Like, he's a pretty talented horse on that. I don't know, you feel like he holds his form. He's going to find a right race around the same distance. He'll be peaking. I think he'll be one to follow anyway.
Yeah, I think there's going to be now sort of those winter championship sort of heats. That kind of race is going to be perfect for him. And we've always spoken about this, though. These on-speed horses, they need to be, when they're going to be winning, at just about 95% plus fitness because they can't continue to absorb it when they're just coming back from a spell. So
I think
he'd be ready to rock and roll.
In mind with him because he's coming in now. I presume there's been no issues. They sort of dodged the main bit of the autumn. They're going to lead into winter. He's going to be the fit, on-speed, fit horse with some ability. So follow him. Now, I've got a couple to follow out wider.
Yep.
Now, Scorched Lane, who they went to sale with and controlled speed, shall we say, at the front, which wasn't to benefit. Set outside was short, but I think, they'll go 1,200, probably 1,300 anyway. It'll be very hard to beat. Okay. Was out sprinted the other day.
Yep.
Don't you love to see that when they just,
no, that's helpful.
That's helpful.
Yeah.
Another one that was back then, there's so much money around for this horse the other day. It was originally in Queensland, sort of changed stables, came down, it's gone to Dan Marr, Iced Chocolate.
Okay.
My mate TB nearly got it home with his call.
Okay.
Didn't quite get there.
He tried his best.
Actually beat by a nice one, but Iced Chocolate, it'll be winning a maiden. So.
Okay, beautiful. So there's a few there from Hutch, obviously a couple from Saturday, but also a couple out wide, which we love. That's the racing done and dusted. Your team, the Eagles, for the punters out there, they're going well.
Listen, I don't know what to say. I'm actually bordering on being clinically depressed. With
again,
what? There's just no light at the end of the tunnel. Well, if there is, it's an oncoming train.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what to say. It was pathetic.
Yeah.
And it could be years in them. I might have to change teams.
So they'll get the Tigers soon. I think they get the Tigers soon. But the problem with that is...
that'd be a blockbuster.
Yeah, I think we'll go. We'll go. I think it's in a couple of weeks, but I think it's at the G. So, not that it probably matters, the Eagles at the moment, but they're in a bit of trouble. Your other team, the Dogs, they were good, but then sort of coughed it up late to Brisbane.
They're very good. Big, good side.
Yeah.
And, they're not far away.
Yeah, they're just still missing those 3 or 4 that will come straight back in.
Good dark horses here, I reckon.
They are. They just don't want to fall too far behind.
Yeah.
Which is it's going to be tight. The competition clearly has.
The map is always important. But on another note, now your team, Geelong, and how'd you go with your mate the game? You sort of got over the line there.
Voldemort was there, and he. This is actually an interesting thing, Hutch. I've met him somewhere. We met somewhere before it, and he's wearing the Guernsey. Now, I thought as an adult we don't do that. No. So he's gone the Guernsey.
I mean, did you get the red card out? That's like I won't be standing with you for the rest of the game.
Well, I walked the other direction. I didn't catch up with him. But I found it a bit bizarre, more so in the fact that there was nothing underneath. He just had Guernsey on. Now, I don't, it's just not normal. So, and he was quite chuffed at himself. And I was like, no, you don't, this doesn't happen. This is
so
not.
It was fair dinkum. It wasn't even a wind-up.
And so he was happy and, was sitting there and he was excited because the Crows were playing really well.
Yeah.
And seemed to have it in their keep. But you just knew if Geelong kept close enough, they were always half a chance. Anyway, so I thought after the game, let's go for a drink after. He goes, nah, straight home. He was out. No. He was gone.
So he's worn the Guernsey and gone home. You know what? You need new friends.
Yeah. Well, we got rid of him, so he's gone. So I'll see him next year for the next one, but I don't know what. Hopefully he's not wearing the Guernsey, but there you go. So that's an interesting one for the punters out there is the Guernsey, again, as an adult, is an interesting term in the first place, but then not to have anything underneath is you're going into real unseen territory there.
That's just not normal.
Unseen territory.
Yeah, that's not normal.
Thanks for joining me.
Thank you. Just happy.
Bye.
You win some, you lose more. For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.